And I don't really agree with a lot of the ways jiu-jitsu gyms are run right now. We like some of them, right? But I think a lot of them.
If you ever end up with a bigger, stronger attacker on top of you.
And then that next year I was able to win worlds, gi and no gi, right the next year after an adult blue belt.
Hi, I'm Randy Roselle with the Patriot Point Show. I'm a retired Navy SEAL, combat veteran, former firefighter, paramedic, and jiu-jitsu black belt. Have my own tactical company, American Warrior Combatives. I'm here with my co-host today, Stefan Banta. Stefan's a world BJJ champion and black belt himself. And since we got Stefan on the show today, he is a higher level black belt than I am. And I've done some tournaments in the past, nowhere close to Stefan's level. But what I thought our listeners would be curious about, Stefan, is if you had ever lost a match.
Definitely. Lost more than one for sure.
More than one. So, when people are first starting to, do jiu-jitsu and start to compete, of course they're going to lose. But as you get higher up, and closer to your level, the elite level of jiu-jitsu, how do you deal with loss when that happens after, because I know you do a camp for like 6 months, right? And you train very hard for those 6 months. And when you've dedicated your life for something for that long, your diet, your nutrition, your sleep, your mindset, everything. And somehow, in those, 10 minutes, something goes wrong. You just get knocked out of the saddle. How do you come back from that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think for me, I just try to be outcome independent about it. I always want to win. I know I have the will to win, but I don't think winning is necessarily the most important part. I think the striving to win is important. I mean, I always want to win, right? Like I'm willing to do anything to win. But I know if I've put in that work prior, that it doesn't bother me as much as it would have if I didn't, right? Because like I've gone to tournaments before and I've maybe lost, and I know I wasn't in a spot where I should have even competed, and so I think making sure that preparation is sound is super important. And then when you lose, things just happen. I always say jiu-jitsu is like a maturation thing. So the mat time really does matter. Yes. Right? Like we see guys like Adam Wardzinski. He lost worlds, I think 7 years in a row, and now he's on track to win it for the second time. He's already the last 2 years, he just found his stride, and I think he's like 34, 35.
Yeah, Lovato, right, too. He never won as a color belt.
He never won as a color belt. I mean, we see a lot of those guys they'll find their stride, and then once they find that stride, and they're very competition successful. But it really is a lot of mat time. Very rarely do you see somebody that was just good from the beginning. I mean, even those guys will take L's occasionally. The thing I'd say is, don't stop it from, if you take a loss, don't stop that. Don't let it stop you from competing again, right? I think a lot of people, they'll lose, and then it'll kind of, it'll plant that seed, right? And something that one of my really good friends, Alexander Trans, told me like years ago, he said, Stefan, the wins and losses don't really matter specifically in jiu-jitsu. I think like in boxing, like you got the undefeated boxer against the other undefeated boxers, like someone's O has to go, and it's like this big thing on like, I'm an undefeated, or I have, being undefeated in boxing is like a huge deal. But even if you look at like Buchecha, like Marcos Almeida, or Felipe Pena, or any of these like high-level, very famous, multiple-time world champs, Roger Gracie, all these guys, if you look at their actual wins and loss records, it's about 65, 70 to 30 wins versus losses, right? And so, Buchecha has, I believe, over 20 or 30 losses on his record, which would be devastating to like a boxer. But if you look at his records of what he's won, he's 13 or 14, he gave that one to Leandro Lo, but if he hadn't, he would have 14 black belt world titles, which is just incredible, right? And so I think that the wins and losses don't really matter. It's the titles that matter specifically in jiu-jitsu, right? And so if you can win some of those big titles, that's what always mattered to me, right? Like I didn't really care. I always wanted to win, of course, but for me it matters more, the things that I won versus. I don't think that necessarily the names that you beat are as important. Obviously there's like a few people, like if, when somebody beats Gordon, or when somebody beats, like if somebody were to fight like Buchecha or Hodger in the gi again, like those matter, right? Like that's the guy that did that thing. But generally speaking, like when people say like, oh, I'm a black belt world champion, people don't really know who was on the podium. You know, those top few guys just kind of exchange spots. So more saying I have this title is more important in jiu-jitsu than just saying, you know, I beat this guy.
So you said, you know, there were sometimes you felt like you didn't train up for the match. Which one hurts more, right? The one where you spent 6 months like training, or the one where you walked in, you're like, you know, I didn't really.
Yeah, definitely the one where you worked.
Yeah,
the 6 months and you get fucked by the ref decision or something. Those hurt the worst. But one thing I'd say, especially for jiu-jitsu, is try to build, this is a little off topic, but try to build a game that's submission oriented.
Yes.
Right? Because a lot of times, if you go into tournaments, I mean, I think there's definitely, you can run into some issues depending on like if you're from a smaller team, right? Or if the ref knows the other guy. Like we've all been there I've been on the winning end of that equation and the losing end of that equation, right? Where I've had nobody in my corner. And I've also been in some matches where I had like Fabio Gurgel in my corner. And I was like, if this goes to ref decision, I'll win it. You know, like the general for Team Alliance. And so I think going out there and submitting everybody is really the way to do it. And that makes such a statement. Nobody wants to watch boring fighters. We saw that at Worlds this year. Some guys won black belt world titles and nobody knows and nobody cares because they won them all by referee decision or by penalties or something like that. Like try to put a show on it, you know. And another thing too is I would say is just have fun. You know, that's another thing too. Like that's been something I've been really trying to focus on the last couple of years. Is as I start competing at the higher level of black belts, I'm really trying to have fun with it because that stress will eat away at you. You know, if you let it. And then the other thing I'd say too is don't attach winning to your identity. Right, like you have to have some attachment to it because you have to have an ego in the sport. Like having no ego doesn't work because you wouldn't care if you won or lost. Like you have to really care. But in the training room, don't care, obviously, right? But you know, in winning, you really have to care. But also, you know, understand that you should be having some fun in it and you should be enjoying the process of it, right? Like if you don't enjoy it and you hate it, then you shouldn't do it, right? And so if you're
most of us tend to love it, right? I mean, that's why we're going to practice every day.
No, I'm saying competition though. Like if you hate competition, right? And you really don't like it, then I wouldn't force myself to compete. If I don't want to compete, I just don't compete, right? And so
that's true. Everybody that walks into the jiu-jitsu gym is not interested.
Yeah, not everybody's interested in competition. Yeah, right. If you want to compete at a high level, you know, you're going to have to put yourself out there and try to have fun with it and try to understand that it's still a grappling sport. And then, you know, in a way, also understand that. You know, I always talk, like one of my buddies, Isaac, he hit me up, you know, Isaac Tawaf is a good guy. He hit me up before his first jiu-jitsu tournament, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. He's like, man, I'm so nervous. I'm like freaking out. Like, what if I lose? And I'm like, man, like you still have a beautiful wife at home that loves you. You still have like an amazing son. Is before his other kids were born. But I was
still
like,
get to do the sport, man.
You won, man. You know, you still won. And you know, you're able to do this and just go out there and do it for them, right? But you know, if you did take an L, understand that, you know, you still have a lot of other great things in your life. Attaching your identity to the winning can be troublesome because then when eventually you lose, or if you do lose, or if you lose a few matches in a row, it can get kind of dark. And I've been there too, right? And so I think it's good to have other things in your life that bring enjoyment. Like I don't just do jiu-jitsu, right? Like for me, jiu-jitsu is never enough for me. Like the majority of my world titles I won while in college at a pretty tough university, right? Then I graduated from there, and for like 3 months, all I did was jiu-jitsu. This is last year, right? And I would just like go home in the afternoon and sleep. I was like, man, this isn't enough, right? Like I was teaching a lot and things like that. I was making okay money, but then I got another job, and then now I got like another couple of jobs. But I'm still training the same volume, and my life is much more fulfilled, and I have a lot more enjoyment because I have other things that bring me joy. I think if you just focused on jiu-jitsu and you win all your titles that you want, it's a little bit hollow, right? Like you want to be able to pursue things outside of it, as long as they're conducive to having a successful life in general. So like having a job is a great thing. I think a lot of guys, you know, that are in jiu-jitsu are bums, to be honest, because all they do is grapple, right? And then it's like, but what are you doing outside of that to be successful? Like so many guys that I know have their college degrees or have another skill set, and they just want to grapple all day. And I understand that, you know, and if you're like, there's some guys that I know too that are like retired and they've done a lot of things already. I think that's great. But if you are still unproven in a lot of ways, you know, and all you've ever done is grapple, you should go out there and pursue other things.
No, man, I completely agree. Because you can get hurt anytime.
You hurt anytime. You could get slammed on your head and not be able to train anymore.
Yeah.
We see it, we've seen a couple athletes in the last couple of years get paralyzed horrifically in the sport. I mean, injuries can happen, it's very rare, but what's more likely is you break your arm or, you get hit in the eye and, your eye's messed up for a couple months and you can't really train, or life circumstances, right? Like you could have a family tragedy or you could, something could happen, right? And you won't be able to train. And so I think having this, right, is really important because your body eventually will fail you.
Well, me right now, I just had total hip replacement surgery.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then hernia surgery. So I'm off the mats for 2.5 months before I can go back and train again.
But look how fulfilled you are in all the other areas of your life, right? Like you have a stellar military career. You did a lot of things for decades. You have a beautiful wife, beautiful family. Like you have a great company. Like you have a lot of things you're working on. That we're doing the podcast, right? And so, or this show. And so I think having other avenues to succeed in is really important, and not getting stuck in just the subculture of jiu-jitsu, because it's a great culture, but at the same time, if you get lost in it, it can become very all-absorbing.
Yeah, some people treat it like a religion. Even.
Yes, it's like it becomes kind of culty in a way.
Like the 10th Planet guys, it's almost like their religion.
Jiu-jitsu, right? Yeah, and so I think sometimes guys can get stuck in all their friends are from jiu-jitsu. All they do is train. They go home to sleep and they go back to training, and it's kind of like, that's great, but what are you doing to improve those around you?
Yeah.
And that could be teaching.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that could be competing and doing something to help others. I think giving back, I'm a believer as well. I'm a Christian just like you. Mm-hmm. So that gives me a lot of purpose. That's always given me a lot of purpose. I didn't grow up very religious, but, I think I found God in late high school, and so I think that all those things are really important as you I know we kind of get a little off topic, but again, if you lose and your whole identity is tied to just that one thing, it can be very devastating.
Yeah.
Now, I think that devastation should happen.
Yeah.
I think it should happen. Like as a high level competitor, if you're just dipping your toes in the water, doesn't matter. But at that really high level, for me, it matters. Like if I take a loss, it really does upset me. Right. And for a number of days or weeks, I'll be
competitive.
Exactly. I'll be destroyed and distraught about it. Right. But that will just light a fire under my ass to work 10 times harder. Right. And do things way better for the next time. Work on my strategy. Whether I win or lose, I'm back in the gym Monday. Right. And so if I win a world championship on Thursday or Friday, which has happened a handful of times, thankfully, Monday I'm back in the gym. It's and I find my enjoyment in my training and being around my team and things like that. But also the times that I've lost, I still have a lot of other things outside of my jiu-jitsu that bring me a lot of purpose. And so something else is going to be good tomorrow, right? Versus if all you are is in jiu-jitsu, it can be pretty hard.
We were talking earlier. For me, what I had to do when I lost, when I trained really hard for a camp, and then I lost by advantage, that was heartbreaking.
For sure.
Especially when I thought I beat the guy.
Yeah.
And I had to enter a tournament as soon as I could afterwards.
Yeah.
Just to go, now it wasn't the same level tournament, but just to go compete and win, because I'm like, man, this loss, this bitter taste in my mouth just sucks. Mm-hmm. I got to get rid of it. I mean, even though it's not to the same level, I just need to go win something.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And that's kind of what it took for me to get over that. So I think different people kind of deal with it different ways, but I think that's a great point that you brought up. Is like, hey, jiu-jitsu is an amazing combat sport. For me at 50, it's a hobby. But for high-level competitors like yourself, it can be more than a hobby, right? You can start to become your identity, and then not tying your identity in to just jiu-jitsu and having other things is important. So moving along with that, who was your toughest match ever?
Toughest match ever? Well, probably the worst ass beating I ever got was by this kid named...
We've all had those.
Yeah, was by this kid named Tynan Dalpra, who's now a multiple-time black belt world champ. The kid's is really good, super accomplished. He'll probably retire as the best middleweight ever, I think. He's from AOJ. No, you're good. He's with AOJ, Art of Jiu-Jitsu, under the Mendez brothers. So I think he just won Europeans this weekend. But I think his black belt record is at black belt is 53-1, I think, right now, or something along those lines, or 53-2.
Wow.
Incredible. Or more than 60 wins. I forget. He's basically undefeated. He lost one time to Jansen Gomez, and then Francisco Lowe, they had a weird disqualification, but he's really only had one loss at black belt with over 60 or 70 matches now. That's incredible. And I fought him at blue belt when I had I think less than 18 months of grappling experience, and I got a lesson, right? Yeah. But it was good for me because I kind of realized what I needed to do and how far I was from being really good, actually, And then that next year I was able to win worlds gi and no gi right the next year after an adult blue belt. Yeah. So that was eye opening. The hardest match that I've had, probably that I won, there are two guys that I fought at brown belt that were super tough. One is Nico McGlissick from Australia. He's a really good black belt, and he and I fought in the world final in the gi in the super heavy division at brown belt, and that was a barn burner match. Went down to 1 point. I'd beaten him at the Pans final. We were kind of having this, very respectful, but he would look at my Instagram stuff, I'd look at his, and I was like, he's working hard, and I'm working hard, and one of those deals. And I knew the rest of the guys in the division were kind of cannon fodder a little bit. There was Hiram Gracie from, he's very good, but I just didn't think he would be in the final. I thought Nico would, and I met him in the final. And his coach is Andre Govao, who's one of the best ever. Yeah. And I remember before the match, I was sitting there, I was kind of getting ready, and my coach Joao was behind me. And I remember Govao starts talking to my coach, and they know each other from years past in Brazil and stuff.
I mean, Govao, he's he knows the system.
Oh yeah. He's one of the he's probably one of the most winningest ever athletes for sure.
Right.
And the best team in the world right now, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
And and he points at Joao and he goes like this, and Joao's like shaking his finger and he's saying that I'm gonna, and so it was good to get that win. And then I talked to Govao at CGI this past year, and he was like, "Man, I always hate when my guys fight you because they always lose." It's kind of funny. He's like, "I was like, man, he's like this guy. He's like, you're pretty strong, bro. He's like, it's annoying, but he's a great guy. I really like Govao." But
you're representing Dallas well.
Yeah, thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
Me getting my black belt out of San Diego, and Southern California, and kind of being the hub. Yeah. For high level, jiu-jitsu, it's spreading.
It's spreading. I think Texas is kind of the hub now. We got New Wave and Victor Hugo and
you got Danaher down there in Austin, right? Mm-hmm. And Gordon and those guys. Yeah.
B team.
Yeah.
And then Victor Hugo's over there too.
So Texas is kind of
coming over.
I know, I train at Double Five, and when I'm healthy, and man, everybody's tough there.
Yeah, for sure.
Not quite your level tough, but they're pretty damn tough. And then Formiga, my gosh.
Stud.
I mean, I don't know how many world titles he's got. 15 something. Yeah. I think he just won again. Mm-hmm. Such a great guy to learn from.
I remember when I first trained with Formiga. I forget who told me, but somebody told me, they said, "Hey, he's gonna grab you. He's gonna pull guard. He's gonna grab you, and then you're gonna just see your feet. Yeah. And you're gonna be flying." Yeah. And I was like, nah, I'm way bigger than him. It's not gonna happen. I remember I tapped hands with him like this. I slap bumped. And then he just grabbed me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm weightless." And then I went right overhead. Yeah. And that was the first 6 months of training with him every time. And so it was astounding. It felt like he had magic. Yeah. The first half year that I trained with him, he was just whooping my ass so bad.
And he's so humble and such a nice guy, and just genuine, and authentic. I really love training there. It's a great place.
For me, he's a stud. For me, he's a super stud. There's a lot of good guys over there.
And you're getting ready to open up your own gym, right?
Yeah.
So, let's hear about that.
Yeah, for sure. So my business partner and I, Laurens, he's one of my mentors, has really kind of stepped into one of my main coaches the past handful of years. I've known him since I was
I've heard you brag about him a few times.
Yeah, he's a badass man, and like I said, I always respect guys that have a high level of jiu-jitsu and then also do a lot of other high level shit outside of the sport. And so he works a corporate job, very successful. His wife's an attorney, just killer family.
Yeah, just a complete underachiever, huh?
Yeah, complete underachiever. And then outside of that, he's won Master Worlds a handful of times. He started jiu-jitsu in his 30s, I believe. And
oh wow, just picked it up.
Got his black belt under 8 years, I think. Yeah. And then Artie's been a black belt for close to 10, I think. He's 48 now. I mean, he got his black belt quick. And he started in his 30s. I think he won worlds at a lot of different colored belts. I mean, he's just a stud. Trained Bruno Bastos and then got his black belt under Marcus Antelante. But he and I are opening up our own gym. It's going to be called the Grappling Institute in downtown Dallas. And we're going to do it a little bit differently. We kind of have a whole... I think Laurens and I don't really agree with a lot of the ways jiu-jitsu gyms are run right now. We like some of them, right? But I think a lot of them, like I love the way Formiga runs his stuff, like all that. No criticism to anybody, but we just want to run it like similar to Formiga, and that way it's very open and very welcoming, right?
Yeah.
We're not really worried about where your affiliation comes from. Anybody's welcome to come train with us. We're going to build a stud competition team as time goes on, but we're mainly going to prioritize no injuries, no drama, and no weirdos.
No weirdos.
No weirdos.
Good luck with that. I hope so.
But we're gonna have it's a little bit of a seriously, it's a little bit of a boutique gym because it's pretty small. It's about 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
But some of the gyms that I've trained with in the past, I don't agree with that everybody should be allowed to be there. I think everybody needs to be helping everybody.
I totally agree with that.
And I think that everybody needs to be comfortable being there. If there's an individual that makes other people uncomfortable, especially like that would make women uncomfortable. I've been in gyms before. Oh, hey, that guy's creepy. Well, he shouldn't be here. Right, and he should be out that same day. And I'll be honest with you, like if I think you're a creeper, or I think you're being a little weird with a woman, I'll just come up to you and I'll say, hey man, please pack your stuff and leave. And if you ask me why, I'm going to tell you that I'm uncomfortable, and they're making people uncomfortable in the gym, and that's it. You're out. And so I think that having that, and another thing too, I think a big reason that a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms don't kick out those individuals is because they want their money.
Yeah, so
that's the main reason, right?
I taught at a gym for 2 years in Dallas, right, and we had a purple belt there. They would hurt people. And, anytime, he started to lose against someone, he would hurt them. He would do something kind of dirty. And I kicked him out of class a couple of times, but I wasn't the owner of the gym. And I would have kicked him out.
They won probably.
I would have kicked him out a long time ago, right? Because he cost us more students. Because if somebody, especially is a white belt or a blue belt, right, they get hurt.
They're not going to want to continue
They're not going to, how many people don't come back after they get hurt, especially when they're new, right? And the owner never kicked them out, and I would have just done it otherwise. I would have got rid of him. He didn't bring anything to the gym. He wasn't a mentor. I couldn't put him. When I was teaching class, I couldn't put him with new people. I couldn't put him with women. I could other people in there that I could trust not to hurt someone. And I think those people, that's good that you're already talking about, like, hey, you're either going to fit this culture or you're not going to fit this culture. Or you're not going to belong here, because we can't have people that hurt people.
Exactly.
This gym, we want you to do well, but it's not an ego gym.
Yes. And for sure. And I think they leave your ego at the door thing. I think that is like a little bit of a false thing, because you can't. Everybody's got to have an ego. Right. But what I mean by that is, like, another thing too is I think empowering people. Like, I think jiu-jitsu is such an important skill to have in your life, especially for smaller guys or for women or just people in general, people with mental health issues. I think it is just such a powerful tool, and it empowers. And another thing too is, like, because of that, I'm an ambassador for the sport, right? And if I'm your coach, if I'm your professor, I'm a mentor to you on those mats, right? And so it's my duty to keep you safe, right? It's my duty to make you feel comfortable and secure, and it's my duty to have you keep training. Regardless of the money. Like Laurence and I already agreed, we talked about it in the beginning. I said, hey, let's do this for 24 months minimum, sign the contract, the lease, whatever. And if we don't make $1 and every month is a loss, a complete loss, let's keep it open for 2 years. And we agreed on it. But that's because we have things outside of the jiu-jitsu that pay us, so we can do that, right? So we could have that
I don't think
many
you're going to have to worry
students.
about it, buddy.
No, I agree. I agree.
I think you're going to make some money.
I agree. We already have a bunch of pre-signups, which is awesome. But
but
the thing
I'll
is,
come do some seminars for you guys.
Please. But I think that's a big thing too, is like, because we have these other things outside of jiu-jitsu that allow us to keep the gym open, our only motivation is to make people better and empower people and to keep them training. And we'll do anything for that. And the big thing is injuries and being uncomfortable, right? Like some people, when they're first starting their journey, I always say there's like a 6-month hump where it really sucks. We're going to try to smoothen that hump out a little bit. A big thing too is, like, brand new people that come into the gym, they're not going to be able to train. How many times have you seen,
do you mean by train roll?
Yeah, they're not going to be able to roll. Okay. Yeah, they're not going to be able to live train up until they have a certain level of skill. Now, the reason being is, how many times have you seen the high school wrestler pair with a 45-year-old dad on TRT, and the black belt coach puts them together and says, I want to see what happens. That happens in every gym. It's happened in every gym I've ever been in. Right? And so we're going to try to avoid that, because that's how, teeth get knocked out, people get hurt. And And
ego gets involved.
And ego gets involved, right? And so once you have a little time in the sport and you kind of understand it a little bit more.
My thing was I would never try to put white belts together.
Exactly.
I always tried to put,
the upper belts with the white belts.
The upper belts with the white belts 100%. So they could
coach
them along and mentor them, right?
For sure.
Because like you said, when you get 2 white belts, it's ego, it's bull on bull, right?
Oh yeah.
So that was my thing. One thing you mentioned is about women too. As a combatives expert, I'm always I teach women quite a bit, and I utilize principles from jiu-jitsu to get them back out, up and away, so they can escape. But then once people are done training combatives with me, because it's not a belt system and it's not a 10-year system. They always ask me, and they're like, "Well, Randy, what do you think I should take next?" And I always tell them jiu-jitsu. And it's not just because I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but it's because I believe in it. But the reason is, I'm like, all right, if you ever end up with a bigger, stronger attacker on top of you, and you train jiu-jitsu, you've been here thousands of times. You know how to stay calm. You know how to win from here. And we were talking about, like, a college girl. Some, Lord forbid, some drunk guy ends up on top of some poor girl in her dorm. Well, if she's trained jiu-jitsu for 5 years,
she knows a little something.
That poor bastard's going to go flying through the damn window. And he came into the wrong room, right? And so that's why I think jiu-jitsu is important for women. And I think a lot of women get intimidated by it because they go in, they see a bunch of sweaty guys, chest out, sweating, sometimes in pajamas, sometimes no-gi, and they look like they're going at it and trying to rip each other's heads off, and they're like, I don't want that dude trying to rip my head off, or on top of me, sweating and breathing and grunting and in between my legs, So for women that want to come train with you and train at your gym, or children, are you guys going to have kids?
Yeah, so we're going to have kids classes. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm going to be running them. We'll probably bring in an outside instructor who's a little bit more experienced with kids. I just don't have a bunch of experience teaching kids, and I want to make sure that they get something really good. And
there's going to be a lot of women down there where you're at.
Yeah.
So how will you make that inviting for them to come join?
For sure.
Because a lot of gyms don't.
Yeah, that's very true.
Like I train, you and I have been around a lot of gyms.
It's very true.
And, there might be like 1 or 2 there. And those ladies are very special ladies. They kind of like, they kind of weather the storm.
Yes. Yeah.
So
a big thing I think is we're just going to build a culture to where, number one, if a woman comes and trains, we're going to build a culture to where they don't get that DM after saying thanks for the roll or what are you doing later, things like that, right? Because that's a big thing. I think
it's not a hit on culture.
It's not a hit on culture, And another thing too is like I'm very willing. So one big thing, just to kind of pivot this a tiny bit, is I think every gym has like a mat enforcer, right? And what that would be for people that don't know is like if you come in or you're a visitor and you hurt somebody in the gym, that mat enforcer comes, he kind of beats you up, and he kind of puts you in your place, right?
We've both kind of been that person.
Exactly, right? And I've been that person for every gym I've been in, right?
Yeah. But you're a good candidate for it.
Thank you. But we're not going to even have that, right? Like as soon as we can kind of diagnose a little bit of that, you're just going to be asked to leave.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think a lot of times people
are just educated.
Or just educated. Like, hey, let me sit you down and talk to you.
This is not the kind of gym, this is not what we want to do here.
Exactly.
Right?
We'll have some women's only classes too. We're kind of building the schedule out right now. But we want women to feel comfortable, and we want it to be an inviting environment. Number one thing too is it's going to be very clean.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big thing too. A lot of jiu-jitsu gyms struggle with. So it's going to be very clean. 24/7 CCTV camera. Or CCTV cameras at all times, and we're also going to have like a monitor outside so you can watch, the mats if you're a parent and your kid's inside. It's kind of a smaller space.
Yeah.
We want everything to be very transparent, everything to be audio and video recorded.
Yeah.
We're also going to be background checking the people that come into our gyms. And I mean, if you have a DUI from 5 years ago, we're not going to kick you out the gym. But if you have anything,
if you're a mental health person, Yeah, like maybe we shouldn't be teaching you how to choke people out.
Exactly. Right? Or like if you have like domestic violence charges, sexual assault charges, you know, certain things that kind of raise some red flags about maybe your character as an individual, you know, maybe anything with violence, you're not going to be allowed to be at the gym. And that's just, why would we equip you with a skill that allows you to hurt people better if you wanted to do it in that way? Now, jiu-jitsu offers a lot more things: honor, respect. It teaches you, you know, discipline, a lot of things. But also, I like that Jordan Peterson quote. I believe it was Jordan Peterson, where it said, violence doesn't, or pardon me, jiu-jitsu doesn't, martial arts doesn't make bad men good. It makes bad men more dangerous. Yeah. Right. And so that's the thing. Like we want to have people of sound character in the gym. We're going to vet you. It's going to be a boutique experience, right? And so we're really
pretty cool, man.
Yeah, we're really trying to create something
special.
I
can't wait to come check it out.
Yeah, please, man. You're welcome there anytime. We're really trying to create something special that people feel comfortable with, and also that open line of communication. So if there's any guy in there that we don't peep anything, we're going to ask you to come up and talk to us, right? Like we really want that full, you know, and it's going to be a small enough environment. It's not a huge gym, at least we're starting out in. It's going to be small enough to where you can really control kind of the environment and what goes on in the environment. I think a lot of times people, you know, the coach is not looking or something weird happens, and we're not going to have that culture. I think the base root is culture. We're going to build a special culture that just doesn't have that in it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I can't wait for you guys
really
to open up and come check it out and watch you grow and build it. It's super exciting.
It's very exciting.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to leave with our listeners?
The one thing I'd say is if you have the opportunity, just go train. Look up a jiu-jitsu gym around you. Randy kind of mentioned this in the last show we had. Proximity is important, right? So that you don't need to go to the best gym around you. Go to the gym that's close to you. Check out 10 gyms in your areas. Like even people that come to try my gym, I'm going to tell them, hey, before you sign up, you should try like 5 other gyms. Yeah. See what fits. Does our culture fit? Does another culture fit you better? Because each jiu-jitsu gym is really like a different culture. It's a different tribe, right? And so find something that fits you. And then the other thing I'd say is always give it 6 months, right? Like a lot of times certain things that we start, we don't always finish because we don't like it midway through. Give it 6 months. If you don't like it at 6 months, just quit. The sport is not for everybody, right? Jiu-jitsu, like it's the sport. It's not the sport for everybody, but it's the sport for a lot of people. And so if you can find that you like it at the 6 month mark, the 5 month mark, the 3 month mark, like my sister was never able to get over that hump. I always tried to have her train. And she would always train for 3 weeks a month. Oh, my shoulder hurts. Oh, my back is sore. And then would just start up 2 months later. And then she just went right back down. So she never was able to get over that physical limit or that mental limit. And so my thing would be just train. Even some of my coworkers for my tech sales job right now, they'll message me, oh man, I have this jiu-jitsu gym in my area. Should I go check it out? And I'll touch base with them every week. Oh man, I had a busy week with my family. Oh man, my shoulder's bothering me from a football injury in high school. I'm not able to go this week. So you're always going to have an excuse, right? You're always going to have a reason to not go train. But just go get off your ass and do it. You know, don't be lazy. We can always make time for what's important. If defending your family and learning a valuable skill that could protect your life and give you confidence is not important to you, it should be, right?
You know, I'd like to leave the listeners with something. I totally agree with you. There's a lot of pain in life, right? And that's no secret to anybody. I'm not saying anything super profound right there. But, you know, you sitting on your couch and your shoulder's going to hurt anyways. You know, your knee's going to hurt anyways. Your back's going to hurt anyways. I choose, if life is pain, I choose the pain of training, right? Because one hurts my heart and the other one doesn't, right? If I sit home and I come up with an excuse to not train, then that is a heartache. And that is the worst kind of ache. You know, that ache where I let myself down, where I could have gone and trained, but I came up with a crappy excuse not to. I would much rather go train, get the endorphins off that, feel good, come back, sit on my couch, and be like, oh man, my back's stiff or my neck hurts a little bit.
But you did it.
Whatever. But I'm like, that pain is so small compared to the heartache or the mental anguish I would have put myself through, right? Had I not gone and trained that day. So if life is pain, well, hell, pick your pain.
Exactly.
One's positive. One's negative. Which one would you rather suffer from?
Exactly. No, I totally agree with that. And another thing too, I mean, if people aren't motivated to train, is especially if you're a man, because we were kind of talking about you know, strength, things like that. If you don't have the ability to protect your family, you should feel bad about that. That's a big thing for me, right? Like you should be training firearms. You should be training combatives. You should be training medical. You should be training jiu-jitsu. You should learn how to strike a little bit. You should learn a little bit of boxing. You should learn, these basic skills. Because if that moment does happen and you get that call, right, and your daughter was in a car accident or, somebody comes and assaults your wife at lunch, things like that, and you're out together, what are you going to do as a man? Because that is your role inherently, right? Like biblically and just societally, our role as protectors and providers. So if you don't have that ability, now that doesn't mean you need to spend your life acquiring those skills like Randy or even myself on a smaller scale with my jiu-jitsu and the things that I train, but a base level of understanding can save you from, we never know if we're going to get that call, right? But if we get that call and we're unprepared, I couldn't even imagine the pain from that, right?
And these are all the things that I teach people with American Warrior Combatives, and awctactical.com, where people can check these things out. And this is what we want to make people aware of with the Patriot Point show, and as we get our range going, right, how to prepare people for these things. And until the Patriot Point range comes online, we have American Warrior Combatives where people can learn these skills. And I completely agree with you because this is what I do for a living now. I empower people that way, and I think it's very important to be prepared. I think we keep bad things out of our life when we prepare for them.
Exactly.
Or they just don't seem as bad when they happen because you were already kind of prepared for it, so it never got as bad as it could have been, right? Yeah. So I think that's really important. Well, we'd like to thank everyone for listening to the show today. Again, I'm Randy Roselle here with Steff and Banta. This is a Patriot Point show, and stay safe out there, guys.